This podcast and content posted by Dr. Judith Joseph is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website is at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional diagnoses or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. Hello, I'm so grateful that you chose to listen to this podcast. I'm Dr. Judith, a board-certified psychiatrist and researcher, and on this podcast, you will hear from world-renowned experts. At the end of every single podcast of The Vault, every expert talks about a time in their lives when they were struggling and no one knew it, and they talk about what they used to get through that struggle. So make sure you listen through till the end and you subscribe and share with a friend. Dance Moms is one of my favorite reality shows, and I met Dr. Holly at a Meta parenting event years ago. We became fast friends. She introduced me to the other Dance Moms on their podcast, where we discussed youth mental health and women's mental health. Dr. Holly has an upcoming TEDx talk at UPenn, where she graduated with an Ivy League graduate degree in education, and she's been using her expertise and platform to create positive change in the world. You can see Dr. Holly advocating for youth mental health and education at places like the White House and governor's offices. Her daughter Nia is also about to release a highly anticipated book. I recently met up with Dr. Holly and her husband in Pittsburgh, and we talked about her upcoming TEDx, which she really can't talk about until it's released, but she gave us a hint that it has to do with the system that she created to improve your mindset as a parent and educator, and finding meaning and purpose using the power of dance and performance. Most educators are women, who may also be working moms and caregivers. Educators are expected to do so much, and burnout and high-functioning depression may be high in this vulnerable population.
When it talks about periods, how many students stay home each month because they don't have the materials for periods. Wow. Yeah, that was shocking to me. And making that accessible and having those materials in the bathroom available to everyone, just like you have paper towels, just like you would have soap. Why wouldn't you have products for periods in the bathrooms for students?
So basic needs.
Basic needs. Being able to eat. Basic needs. Because if you have a child that's hungry, they're not focused on studying.
No, they're not. They're not going to care about their grades.
They're not caring about their grades.
It's hard to when your stomach is grumbling.
Exactly. You can't focus.
Dr. Holly talks about the challenges within the education system for educators and for students, and how we can all do our part to find meaning and purpose by helping others in our community. You were my very first podcast guest.
No, I didn't realize that.
One or two. You weren't here in the vault.
No.
We did it virtually, so I'm so thrilled to have you in the vault.
I am. You've talked about the vault. I'm like, you're right. Walking in here, I was like, oh my gosh, it really is a vault. I'm good. Let me slide in sideways.
And I'm so lucky because I get to see you twice today because you are my conversation partner for my New York City book launch.
And I'm so excited to be a part of it, to play a small role. Is so incredible for your book launch. I'm so proud of you.
It's no small role. You are such a support to me. I mean, I'm so grateful for your friendship and your support.
When you work with great people, and I cannot stress upon enough how amazing you are. You're talented, you're brilliant, you're kind, and you are always thinking in a way that frames life in a positive manner and a practical approach, and just like, you want to watch your material online. I can't tell you how many people I've said, oh, I have a friend. I'm going to New York to work with a friend on a project. And they're like, oh, who is that? I was like, oh, I'm like, Judith Joseph. Like, not Dr. Judith. I love Dr. Judith.
Well, I feel the same way about you. You know, you are just a breath of fresh air. You're so intelligent and kind and grounded. And it's really hard to find that in a person, especially like in the world of content creators. You know?
Yes, I do know. Yes, I do know. Well, we're like unicorns.
Yes, we are. We are. We're good folks.
We are good folks.
And I've just been like amazed by the advocacy work that you're doing. I see you at the White House. I see you in governor's offices. And you're someone who's has a very long history in education, but you've pivoted now to creating change. And you just gave a TED Talk. Tell us about some of the recent projects that you've been working on that are literally going to change lives for so many.
You know what? It's interesting. I realized, I think it was my work with advocacy for the last presidential election where I was just encouraging people to get out and vote and the importance of doing that and the importance of voting. And I realized I need to do things that are purposeful and meaningful in my life. And there were projects I was doing that I enjoyed, they were fun, but they did not give me that sense of purpose and alignment with all of my values. And I had to take a step back, and it was a leap of faith. And it was and I don't do that very well. And I did talk about this in my TED talk last week when I did it, because you have to lean into like discomfort, and I don't do that very well. I am adverse to risk. I like to be comfortable, even though I know it's not necessarily always in my best interest. But in doing so, I left the podcast that I did with the other dance moms, who I love and I enjoyed. But I was like, there are things I need to do for me solo on my own. And part of that, I think, was going back to my roots as an educator, the things that made me tick. I love to learn. And so I like to stretch myself, and I wanted to do things that I had a greater impact on a wider audience.
Right.
And so it just took me a moment to have to step back and think and reflect. And that allowed me to do the TED Talk, which was incredible. I can't wait for people to hear about it. It won't be out until October.
Well, I mean, it's done, which is great.
It's done. It's done. And then it also allowed me to do some work with the governor's office too, and to talk about education as it relates to students in Pennsylvania. And there are things that I didn't know. And that's the thing when you do advocacy work or you do things like that, there's so many things you don't know. And if you're willing to learn and open yourself up, you can share with other people. And it's been so fulfilling and rewarding.
Well, I mean, for you being a public figure, getting into advocacy is always a risk, right? Because you have to weigh the risk versus benefits of sponsorship. Some partners don't want you to do that. They don't want you to do anything that could potentially be controversial, right? In their eyes, even though it's not. So, you really are sacrificing a lot for the greater good. And not everyone can do that, Tell me a bit about some of the things that you've learned during this policy advocacy journey that you weren't aware of, even though you're a seasoned educator.
Oh, one of the biggest things that I didn't realize, the number of students in Pennsylvania in particular who really needed full lunch and breakfast. That was huge. And also there was a hotline that was established where students could give tips as far as things that they needed, and they would call into it was a 1-800 number. And whereas I would say the governor thought they were using it for one way, it ended up being used by students for mental health.
Wow.
Then that wasn't necessarily the reason or the rationale why it was created. And it was like, wow, there's a need for this for students. And I think the other aspect is just being open to seeing different ways that the government can respond and being responsible for the needs of students. I would say when it talks about periods, how many students stay home each month because they don't have the materials for periods.
Wow.
Yeah, that was shocking to me. And making that accessible and having those materials in the bathroom available to everyone, just like you have paper towels, just like you would have soap. Why wouldn't you have products for periods in the bathrooms for students?
So basic needs.
Basic needs. Being able to eat. Basic needs. Because if you have a child that's hungry, they're not focused on studying.
No, they're not. They're not going to care about their grades.
They're not caring about the grades.
It's hard to when your stomach is grumbling.
Exactly. You can't focus. So those things to me were so important. And I think a lot of people just do not realize how important those are just for students to be able to learn. It's not just about the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s and theories and calculus and all of that. There are basic human needs that have to be addressed because you are teaching young people. They're people. They're not robots. They're actually living things. And just if you can't meet the basic needs, you can't do the other hierarchy of other kinds of thinking.
It's so true because as adults, if I'm hungry, if I skip lunch, I have the skills to be like, okay, I can get through this. I'm not going to blow up. I'm going to do something else. But a child doesn't have that. If they're hungry and they're angry, they're just going to start hitting people or doing something that, they regret. And then they get into trouble. And then it's a vicious cycle. So a lot of adults need to think about that, and it impacts the educators, because if you're someone who's teaching, but then you also have to be a counselor to a child, but then you also have to worry about their basic needs. That's a lot for an educator to deal with. So then you have the mental health needs of both the student and the educator that you're having to think about now. What are some of the things that when you were a teacher, when you were an educator, when you're a principal, that, from your exposure to having that role have helped you in now this advocacy role?
I think first and foremost is the ability to listen to people, which is really hard, because I think sometimes as adults, you just jump in and you want to solve a problem. You talk about that in your book too a lot. I was like, that is so true. So true. But you want to solve it. And sometimes you just have to take a beat and listen. It's not for you to solve. And it's not for you to get across your point of view. Like, oh, you're so busy getting your argument set up in your mind that you're not really actively listening, which is a skill. You need to pay attention and listen to what other people are saying. Working with people who can be difficult, because unfortunately you're in situations where there might be elected officials or whomever who are not necessarily as receptive to working with a diverse population. So if you have to work with difficult people, I think also people have different agendas.
Yes. That is true.
And being a principal, you do have a variety of constituents that you have to work with, and everyone's needs are different. And I think that has prepared me well in with the work of advocacy. And also, I would just say, and it goes back to the previous point you made, when you put yourself in a vulnerable position when people may not necessarily want you talking about something, what they see could be potentially controversial. It's a risk to put yourself out there, but at the same time, it's okay if everyone doesn't like you.
It is true. You can't please everyone.
You can't.
And the mental health aspect of the work in education, I think people don't connect the two. You have to be in it like you are, to really get it. Like, kids don't get their mental health outside of school. The majority of them don't have time for that. The parents don't have time for that. You have to bring it into the classroom.
Absolutely.
And it can't just be the teacher, because the educators are already overwhelmed.
Already. And I think that was the other part with working with the governor's office, when just learning, I didn't realize and they didn't realize the value of that hotline and how they had to respond by having more counselors. And same thing, we can't just rely on our teachers to fill this role. There is a vital need for this. So you're absolutely right. And kids want it. Students want it. They're asking for it. And one of the things I think as adults we could do more of is listen to our students, because I will say, even looking at my children, more open, more receptive to talking about mental health. I don't think we ever talked about it when I was in school.
No.
It was like a taboo subject. You just didn't talk about that.
It didn't exist when we were younger.
I don't think so. I don't remember. I don't think that term even existed. Well, I don't know. Not in my school.
Me either. So what are some of the innovative programs that you've been learning about, or the ways to solve this mental health crisis for our students?
I would say there are different programs. I wish I could remember the phone number, but I don't have it off the top of my head. But there are, like, for social workers, there's like a one-stop shop that if you're looking for a specific information or resources, you could just type it in and it comes right out. Like, it's a website. It has any kind of resource you could imagine that you need that's free and available. It is the Bible for social workers, and they highly recommend, and they share it frequently. And I didn't realize until just recently that it even existed, but they're like, that's where they go, because so often people have very specific needs and they can't be expected to know everybody's needs. But there are so many resources that are often available in different communities. If you could just log in and figure out where they are or what they are, that's very helpful.
Wow. And tell us more about your TED Talk.
So I was honored and just to be able to go back to University of Pennsylvania, which I graduated from the Graduate School of Education. That's where I got my doctorate. And as I opened, I said, it was so great to be back, but not as a student. I have to say, I really enjoyed it more as someone delivering a TED Talk than as a student. Like, this was really cool to go back to Penn. And it was great to be able to blend my dance mom's experience with my experience as an educator.
Oh, tell us about that. That's a TED Talk I will watch.
I will say I got really positive feedback from the students because I met them afterwards. We did a little meet and greet afterwards, which was very nice.
They must have been so thrilled.
They were very, very encouraging. They were so sweet. I was able to blend dance moms with mindsets of educational principles. So I kind of made up my own framework of how you can apply a certain mindset for being successful in life.
That is brilliant because let me tell you.
That's it.
I am a huge fan of that show. Your show, like my daughter and I bonded over. We're obsessed with it. And when you look at, your daughter and the rest of the girls, the amount of discipline, the maturity, like we could all use a bit of that.
Yes. I am so proud of them to see, and we're just like moms and daughters from Pittsburgh. We're from Pittsburgh. We were not people out in LA who had packed up their homes and moved out to, make it out in the big lights. Our moms, we're not very seasoned.
But it's a family effort because it requires so much dedication from the parents. And I don't think people see that. My daughter's in dance and I'm nowhere near as dedicated.
Well, I think we would be very similar because I was not the mom who knew how to sew or do makeup. I still don't really know how to do makeup. Nia was doing most of that on her own, or hair. But I did know how to give love and support.
Yes.
I did know how to give a great pep talk. I was able to do the other things, I thought, pretty well, of being able to provide as much security and safety, or, that sense of, okay, we have this. We can bond together. And the girls, all of them have done so phenomenally well in life. And I think one of the things I have watching them, it has helped to reinforce that success looks different for different people.
It does.
And I think sometimes people on the outside look in and like, oh, this girl was really successful. This girl was like, they are all successful.
Yes.
Because they are all happy and thriving and doing things that they love, that they're passionate about. And they have found their own individual ways to make a life that they are proud of. That to me is successful. And they're functioning members of a community.
Yeah. And their friends. Which is incredible.
And they still keep in touch with each other. Yeah. And they're good people.
Well, I always ask my experts like yourself to name a time in your life when you were struggling on the inside, but on the outside, everything looked put together. And how did you get through it?
I would say that could be just any day on Dance Moms, honestly. Like, let's pick any day, any show of Dance Moms. I probably, except for the days I was crying, there were a couple of days of that where I just could not hold it together. But I think as a whole, most of my time on Dance Moms was like that, especially the fifth season. The fifth season was very, very difficult for me because we had moved to Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah.
And that move to Los Angeles, I never wanted to move to Los Angeles. And for those who have this perception that we were like, I'll speak for myself. I had a career, a life, my husband, my other two children. I didn't need to do that. It was never my desire to go and make it big in LA and see myself on a big screen. I was doing that for my daughter, whatever she wanted to do. But with that in mind, we were in LA and I'm away from my husband, my two boys, my parents, my siblings. I didn't have my family network. It was Nia and it was me. It was the two of us against the world. And it very much felt that way when people are against you. And it was very difficult because I was the mother. And as the mother, I was the grown-up. And I was like, you cannot afford to have a breakdown. You can't afford not to be strong. You can't afford for her to see you fall apart because she needs you right now. And you have to ground yourself and figure out a way to protect her, protect your sanity and your integrity too, all at the same time. And, you have people looking in and I'm parenting in a fishbowl. Everyone has their opinions, but I'm also just a mom. I never proclaimed to be perfect. You see all my imperfections on television on a weekly basis at that time. And it was really difficult because everyone has assumptions about you. And like, I'm just me. I'm just Holly Hatcher-Frazier, just doing my best. But what grounded me and what helped me was asking for help, relying on my parents and my husband, my faith. My faith was so important for me. Prayer, but also I needed an outlet. And there were times I just had to laugh. There were so many things you just had to laugh because otherwise, if you don't laugh, you're just going to be in a puddle of tears always. And I think also was an opportunity to have those conversations with Nia too. And they're hard because I think if I could allow her to see me at times where I was a little bit more vulnerable, maybe I was modeling that for her in some ways.
So important.
Without making her feel afraid or scared, like, oh my gosh, this is really bad. But it's tough. It's really, motherhood's tough anyway.
It is.
And then being in that kind of, a reality TV show is just a dynamic and a environment like no other I've ever experienced. We all have difficult workspaces at times that you might have to experience, but that's totally different.
That's a workplace that everyone has an opinion about, including people who are not in the workplace.
Exactly. Exactly.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing. As a mother, I know how hard it can be.
Yeah.
And you are doing it with so much grace and kindness. And I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you. Where can we find you and follow you and keep up with you and watch your TED Talk?
Well, the TED Talk will be live, I understand, by the fall of next year. So October. So we have times. And I will definitely be putting it on all my socials. So you will not be able to escape it.
October of 2025.
Yes, October 2025. And it's Dr. Holly. I think I'm on that for definitely on Instagram. I think it's Dr. Holly Hatcher-Frazier on Facebook and on TikTok.
The full name on TikTok, right? Yeah.
But I think if you just look up Dr. Holly, it does come up.
Yes. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Make sure that you subscribe. When you subscribe, it helps me to continue to deliver this mental health information for free to millions of listeners. So please support my mission. Please pick up my book, High Functioning, and let's build a happier life together.